What would you have done if you had lived in Berlin, Germany, during the Nazi regime? Would you have participated, complied, or resisted? Hello, welcome to my channel. Another Bibliophile Reads. My name is Greg. We live in troubled and uncertain times. I want to talk about a novel published 78 years ago that is relevant now. I first read it in 2010 and failed to fully appreciate its point. I am talking about Every Man Dies Alone by Hans Fallada, translated from the German by Michael Hoffmann. This book is published in the UK as Alone in Berlin. This novel was first published in 1947. Every Man Dies Alone is a harrowing novel set in Nazi Berlin during World War II. It tells the story of Otto and Anna Quangel, a working-class couple whose son is killed on the front. In grief and disillusionment, they launch a quiet, desperate act of resistance, leaving anonymous postcards denouncing Hitler and the regime across Berlin. Though their campaign is modest and largely ineffective, most postcards are turned in to the Gestapo. Their moral stand embodies the courage of ordinary people in the face of totalitarian terror. The novel intertwines their story with a broad cast of Berliners, opponents, criminals, frightened neighbors, and secret resistors, giving a panoramic view of life under dictatorship. Published posthumously in Germany just months after Fallada's death, he wrote it in less than a month while terminally ill, drawing from real Gestapo files about the case of Otto and Louise Hempel, a real Berlin couple executed for postcard resistance. Critics lauded the novel's unflinching depiction of life in Nazi Berlin, its tension, and its moral seriousness. Reviewers in the New York Times, The Guardian, and elsewhere emphasized its value as a rare from-below portrait of ordinary Germans, neither heroes nor high-ranking Nazis, but everyday people caught in the compliance, complicity, and resistance. Some compared it to the works of Kafka or Dostoevsky for its grim psychological atmosphere and its attention to small acts of rebellion within an oppressive regime. As a novel, it's clunky and disjointed. A few critics noted its stylistic unevenness, owing partly to Fallada's rushed writing at the end of his life and Hoffmann's deliberately raw translation, which preserves repetitions and clumsiness from the original. Others found the novel more valuable as historic testimony than a polished literary art. I have to agree. This novel, as I said, as a novel, is clunky and disjointed. I first read this, I believe I said, in 2010 and failed to appreciate it. Now, in the United States, in 2025, I can really understand what it might like to live under a regime like the Nazis. America is sort of headed in that direction. We may not be headed to all-out world war like World War II, but the authoritarians are on the rise, and this novel will give you a glimpse into what life could be like in the United States if we let this happen. And the Quangels are heroes. They are ordinary people doing their best to struggle under this authoritarian regime. At one point, Anna, the wife of Otto, tells him, "Why do you want to do this postcard campaign? It's so petty. It's so small. What will you hope to do?" And he says, "I don't know, but I have to do something. I cannot sit back and do nothing. And I paraphrase, of course. And then he made a comment. However small, however petty our campaign may be, if we get caught, we will be sentenced to death. And that is a powerful portrait of these ordinary people unable to live under Hitler's Nazi regime. Otto absolutely had to do something, however small. And the postcard campaign, yeah, it did not work. But at least he tried to resist. What would you have done if you had lived in this situation? Otto was not a very intelligent man. He was the supervisor in a coffin factory, making coffins to bury all those dead Germans. And as I said, just recently, his son was returned from the front just days after France capitulated. His son had died, and Otto had to do something. And what are we doing now in the United States, across this country, as we see the rise of authoritarians? And the authoritarian regime that the MAGAs want looks somewhat similar to what the Nazis were doing in Berlin during World War II. They absolutely want to have control. They do not want people to speak out. They do not want them to form any sort of resistance. And poor Otto, his end, as I'm sure you know, is not a good one. But I will state again that Otto, in this novel, along with his wife Anna, are heroes of a sort because they would not comply to the Nazi regime. They had to resist. And this is why I think every American, and maybe everyone else in the rest of this world, should read this novel right now, because it will inform you and tell you that this, however small, is a form of resistance. Maybe a smarter man would have formed a better form of resistance. Dropping anti-Nazi slogans, anti-Hitler slogans, is not the best idea. But what if it were not just one man doing this? What if it were dozens of Berliners, hundreds of Berliners, thousands of Berliners, tens of thousands of Berliners, dropping these postcards with their anti-Hitler, anti-Nazi slogans? Would that have made a difference if more people had joined Otto? Now, of course, Otto could not recruit people because there were many informers at that time. And if you got informed against, you're going to the Gestapo, and you will eventually be tried, and you will eventually be executed. That's how serious of a crime of what Otto was doing. But imagine, just think about it for a second, if those 10,000 Berliners took up his cause and started dropping postcards, because that's what Otto wanted. He thought someone would pick up his postcard and decide, hey, I can do this too. And then they would start dropping more postcards. And it would become like a virus, about tens of thousands of people dropping these postcards. It did not happen, and that's unfortunate. But this novel is something people should be reading, not as a novel, but again, as I said, an historic testimony to what was happening in Berlin at that time, and what maybe could have been better. I highly recommend that people, Americans, the rest of the world, read this novel, because we're going to have to do something if we do not want the United States of America to be a country very much like Nazi Germany had become. Because that, in my humble opinion, is where the United States is heading, unless people resist. You do not have to resist by dropping postcards, or maybe you could, or maybe you can just read books about the regimes and inform people to get educated that this could be your life if you do not resist. Thank you so much for watching, and keep on reading.